Hi and welcome. It is Monday. That must mean that it is Mastermind Monday, the fourth Monday of the month. And the masterminds are here with you sharing topics of concern that will help you to be successful. And so today we are talking about keeping your agreements. There's a cost to every decision we make, and too often we don't stop to weigh the costs. We want what we want, and we want what we want it now, right? And that means that when we have the opportunity to get what we seemingly want, we're ready to jump on it and not necessarily taking the time to take into account what we give up in order to get this, right? I think of it often as short-term gratification over long-term satisfaction, right? We give up time, money, energy, reputations, etc. when we don't keep our agreements. And because we're not doing the calculus, when it comes time to pay up, if we don't see the value in it in the moment, forgetting that we actually have made a commitment, we tend to walk away. I've done that. I'm sure all the ladies on the panel have done that. I'm sure you have done that, right? But walking away is not without its consequences. There is a consequence for how others think and look at us, and there is also a toll that is taken on our own self-esteem and self-perception. We will be discussing Principle 54. If you're following along with us, it's Principle 54, Keep Your Agreement, from the book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. But before we get to all of that, we're going to take a moment to meet the masterminds. And Jody, you are up first.
Okay, thanks, ladies, or thanks, Whitney. So, hi, everybody. I am Jody Santangelo-Ash. I am known as the How-To Law of Attraction Coach, the Law of Attraction How-To Coach, teaching you how to apply Law of Attraction to your life and business so that you intentionally create and design a life that you love. Wonderful relationships, ideal career, ideal job, ideal life. And so that's what I do. So it's great to have you here, either watching us live or watching the replay. So thanks for joining us. Back to you, Whitney.
Thanks, Jody. Gabby, you are up next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Whitney. Hi, everyone. They call me Gabby, the Declutter Queen. I am a Lean Method certified clutter clean coach. It is a spiritual way of clearing the clutter, which is home, mind, relationships, and time. It combines. I'm also a feng shui practitioner, so I combine Lean Method with feng shui. So I have seen people say, oh, I already did spring cleaning. Like, I got rid of the clothes that I don't need anymore. This is not it. What I teach, it is a lot deeper than that. It's about energy. What everything we carry in our space has an energy. So that is what I teach. It's not about spring clearing. I'm an author. I am a speaker, and these incredible ladies are my mastermind group. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabby. And Cheryl.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Mays, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer for Rise and Shine Coaching and Consulting Firm and Academy Director for Master the Sale Academy. I work with businesses and entrepreneurs that are looking at creating loyal fans, customers that come back because of the experience that you created for them. They bring you referrals, they increase your sales, they increase your revenue, because it is truly not only a superpower, but it's a strategy. And we teach that at the Academy. So would love to see you all at the Academy. Love these ladies here, the masterminds. We are, gosh, continuously learning and learning from one another. So this is an exciting conversation.
Thank you. And I am Whitney Wiley. I am an organizational leadership and employee development strategist out of California. Yes, beautiful, sunny California. It actually is not that hot today. It's only like 95 degrees. So having a good day here in California. I work with my clients, helping them to love the work they do and do the work they love. Identifying what that is and then making moves to make that happen. And on the organization side with corporations, my clients, I help them to create workplaces and cultures where their people love to work. And isn't it a blessing to be able to do work that you love? So we are going to dig into this topic of keeping your agreements. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm sure there have been times when each of us, all of us, at one point or another, have made an agreement, made a promise, made a commitment, and then something happened and we didn't honor it. I find an interesting example in the book. If you're reading along, it's chapter 54, principle 54 in the book, The Success Principles. Here's a copy for you if you'd like to look for it. But ladies, when you read the book or when you went through training, I think none of us mentioned we are all success principle trainers.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
And so when you read the book or went through the training, Jack gives this example of back when he was doing live trainings, which I think is happening again, is that the people in the live trainings were asked to sign an agreement that had 15 agreements, like being on time, not drinking through the 3 days of the program. There was a whole list of other things. And some people, everybody signed it, right? Everyone signs it because if you don't sign it, you don't get to stay. The question is, when they signed it, did they intend to keep all of those agreements? Or were they like, I'm going to sign this so I can stay. And if I don't keep them all, who's going to know? Right? And a lot of times we don't stop to really think about the agreements that we make. And maybe they're not that detailed, 15 different items that you're making a commitment to do for 3 days or beyond. We sign contracts, we get married, we do all sorts of things where we say that. One of them is, here's one. You get software or an app, and it asks you to sign the agreement, the licensing agreement. How many of us have ever read the licensing agreement? I'm a lawyer, and I haven't read the licensing agreement, but I've signed it with no intent of honoring that agreement. Probably no intent. And if something goes
just
wrong,
to let you be able to proceed to move forward.
Exactly. And that's what we do, just to be able to move forward. And if something were to go wrong and I were to go and challenge, they would say, it said in paragraph such and such in your agreement that you would do or wouldn't do, blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, oh, okay. Right. But how often
I thought I was doing pretty good until you brought up that example, Whitney. Thank you very much.
Like, how often is how often does that happen to us, right? There are things where we take it pretty seriously. And there's another example, and before I open it up for the ladies to speak, there's another example of, part of that agreement where someone is asked if they were planning to keep the agreement, showing up on time, being late. And the person said, well, I was late because of traffic. Okay, well, I guess that's a pretty good reason. But if I offered you $1 million to make sure you were on time every day, what's the likelihood that you would make
Oh yeah,
sure you
you
arrived
bet.
on time? And then there's another caveat that's put on that example. And it says, what if someone that you love's life depended on you showing up on time? Right? And the person says, I would have stayed. I would never have left. I would have stayed here to make sure that I arrived on time. And are we keeping our agreements with that kind of commitment? And if we are not, should we be making them? So let's just open this for some opening thoughts, and then we can have some discussion about other things that are in this chapter. And then I want to introduce another book about agreements that I have found extremely helpful in my life. So we're going to go in reverse order of the way we went last time. Cheryl.
Well, first of all, I feel like after that statement that you made, that there should have been followed by some music like dun 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 dun.
I know.
Or should you have
Seriously.
made that agreement? Dun dun dun
I
dun.
know. You know.
It's interesting the examples that you gave, because it makes you think about the levity that we place on making agreements. I mean, it's so easy to say, "Oh yeah, I'll take care of that." And how many times have we heard that? "Oh yeah, I'll take care of that." When intentionality is, if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. And so you think about that commitment or that agreement, and you don't put the weight on it that it might be for that other person.
Yeah.
And so, I have to sometimes stop myself, because I realize that I have a bandwidth. I realize that I am not superwoman, and that, although I think I can do many things, there are just some things that I should not do, because it's not going to be done to the excellence that I would like to have it done, because you're just putting yourself too thin. So I think it has to do with being open enough to say, I can't and I'm okay.
Good job. Yeah. True.
I absolutely agree with that. And, we've talked on this program a lot about self care in other episodes, right? And part of that self care is being willing to actually say no to some things. And so here's the other side of you saying no, it's honoring your agreements, it's not making yourself available so that one, and we're going to talk more about this, that people will say, well, Cheryl made a commitment and then she didn't follow through. That's not the reputation, right? And you teach about customer experiences. What
True.
client of yours would want their customers, their clients, their constituents, patients, whatever they are, right, walking around saying they don't honor the agreements that we made to do the service or provide the product that I went to them for, right? I'm pretty sure that's not what you're teaching them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the wrong way of doing it. But it's such a great point of what you say, because this person is going to tell what happened. They're going to tell their experience. So if
Yeah.
you're not keeping your agreements, which is like your core values, your company core values, if you're not walking the talk, then that leads to your credibility as well as your brand reputation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Gabby, any opening
Yeah.
thoughts here?
Yeah, well, after what you said, I totally agree with Jody and Cheryl, because I am guilty. I don't really read. Like when I buy a new computer, like cell phone, I just sign. But I have an example of what happened to me back, I think it was in 2012. There was this so-called leader who was recommended to me by someone I respect. I paid 4,500 for the course just to find out it was a waste of money. It was a waste of time. So I emailed him and I said, I want my money back, because this is not what I was expecting. His reply was, sorry, you're 1 day late, because there was a 30-day, no, actually it was a 3-week warrant. Like within 3 weeks, you can get a refund. After that, you can't. At least I know 1 month, I know 3 months. But anyway, this guy, $4,500 out of my pocket, my hard-earned money, went down the drain because I did not read the agreement properly. So there is always a price to pay when you don't read, number one. And I also didn't find the guy had integrity, if I may, because nobody takes that much money from someone and says you have 3 weeks to ask for refund if you didn't like it. Never heard of it before. But that taught me a lesson that I have to be careful in future. So that is one example that I can share of a mistake that I made personally. So yeah, that
Well,
is my input on that one.
if you've never had that experience, don't come to California, because I'm pretty sure some people can give you that experience.
I know, seriously. Oh
Jody,
God.
opening thoughts.
That was a really great point, Gabby. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Take that one to heart. So, interesting that, used to be that our word was our bond, right? I mean, I think people started businesses, people borrowed money on a handshake, right? I mean, right? And now we casually make agreements, and so we casually break our agreements as well. And when we do that, like I've already heard, is that people lose their trust and their respect of us, and so of course that's definitely not what we want. But one really interesting point I noted from this particular chapter, Jack says that every agreement is ultimately with ourselves.
Yes.
Because when we
Yeah.
speak it out loud, we're registering it as our commitment. And then when we don't follow through, we learn to distrust ourselves. And then we end up losing our self-esteem, our self-confidence. And this was really important. And in our faith, in our ability to produce a result. So you just think every time you do it, you might be thinking it's no big deal, it's no big deal, and it's no big deal. And now it's a big deal. And you've lost your self-esteem. And now you're thinking, well, who am I? If I can't even do this, how could I possibly achieve that? So I thought that was really, really great. So it really undermines our sense of personal power.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it does.
And it's one of those things, and that goes directly to confidence, right? Confidence is built by taking action. And so if you are consistently not taking action, or maybe even if it's not consistent, but it's enough where you're making a commitment to yourself, to someone else. And as Jody said, and on behalf of Jack has said, that every agreement we make ultimately is one we're making with ourselves, because the words that we speak, our brain hears, and it tends to work to make it happen. And so if we work against that, what's the message that we're sending ultimately? It doesn't matter what I say. My word is not my bond, right? And then you're wondering why you don't have confidence to take some actions. It's because you have undermined it. You have undermined. I'm making up words now, right? Speaking
I
of
know it.
words, making up words. You have undermined
Your own self.
your own self-worth, right? And
True.
you have damaged your credibility with yourself. And
Absolutely.
so why would you do that, right? And I think we do that because we don't stop to think about the importance of our words. And so I want to mention another book. I've read this before. I am in the process of reading it again. It's called The Four Agreements. If you have not read this book, you should read it. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. It is a fascinating book. There are four agreements. I'm going to read the four agreements to you. And if you think about agreements in your life, and you make a commitment, right, to yourself from this moment forward. Now that you're hearing us talk about this and you're weighing in, I'm seeing the comments coming in, you're weighing in on this, or you're watching this in replay, you can make a decision to start right here, right now, regardless of what has happened in the past, right? You can erase that, right?
Yeah.
Clear, cancel all of the things that you have made a commitment on in the past and haven't kept. Starting here and now, moving forward, you are going to honor your agreements. You're going to keep your agreements. And here are 4 for you to certainly consider. One is to be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. And it's already been mentioned, the importance of our words, the things that we say to others, that we say to ourselves, they matter. Words matter. The words you choose. Jody is a law of attraction coach, and she can talk about this, and the words that you choose, right, are having an impact on your future. And hopefully she'll speak up about that in a second. So be impeccable with your words. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about other people. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love, right? Impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. This is really sort of my favorite one, right? Yeah. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. You are immune to the opinions and actions of others. You won't, when you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be a victim of needless suffering. Don't make assumptions is the 3rd agreement. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. And then the 4th one is always do your best. Always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. I think that's one of those things that we forget in the midst of making agreements as well, right? Making commitments to people. That our best changes from moment to moment. And maybe this moment you don't have, Cheryl mentioned this at the very beginning, the bandwidth. If you don't have the bandwidth right now, it's okay. You're doing the best that you can. Honor that. Do the best you can. It changes from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid, and this goes to what Jody mentioned earlier, you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And that's what we're looking to help you do in our conversation today, right? To change your mindset, to shift just a little bit how you're thinking about things, how you're speaking, what you're doing, what you're committing to, and knowing that when you are in present moment awareness, knowing how you feel, that you can offer the best that you have up at every moment, and you don't have to go beyond that. You don't have to go beyond that. Jody, sort of tying that into the law of attraction and the words that we use, right? And what we're bringing into our lives. You have a comment that you might want to share with us on that.
Oh, sure. I do. And I was just thinking how you're, Whitney, so good at that because you have caught all of us using words before, and you said, nah, don't label yourself that way. So you're really good at that. So law of attraction is always eavesdropping on our conversations, right? Our conversations with other people, our conversations with us. And so, relating to this particular conversation, I'm not sure, but just off the top of my head, we say, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And law of attraction says, oh, you want overwhelmed? Let me bring you some overwhelm. Oh my gosh, I am sick and tired of blah, blah, blah. Oh, so you want to be sick and tired? Well, let me see if I can give you that, right? Oh, I hope the clients don't cancel. oh, the client, you mentioned canceling clients. Let me see if I can give you that, right? So law of attraction is always eavesdropping on our conversations. And so when you're making commitments to other people and then you're making commitments to yourself, it's the words, but it's also how the words are making you feel. The words are making you feel bad because you know you're not going to honor it, or you don't, right? Over and over and over again. And you're putting out that vibration of no confidence, no self-esteem, right? So law of attraction is always eavesdropping on the words you use. So you want to be conscious about that. So it doesn't, it's just little tweaks, right, gals? Just little tweaks in your vocabulary that can just make a huge difference. Mm-hmm.
I love that word picture, Jody. Law of attraction's eavesdropping, right?
Yeah.
And if you stop to think about your conscious, your unconscious, the universe, all of that it hears every word you're thinking, every word you're saying, every thought you're thinking.
And you can't turn it off.
Come in to make all of that your reality, right? And so we have to be careful. And the reason that I catch you guys, I catch myself, you guys catch me, we catch each other, right? Is one, that we care. We care about each other and want to make sure that we're not speaking into existence stuff that we know each of us does not want.
And the great point that you caught one of us, I'm not naming names, but you caught one of us who spoke up and said, I'm a procrastinator. And you said, you're not labeling yourself. I am a procrastinator. No, a procrastination, you may have procrastinated, but
or
don't label yourself as I am.
Right. So, those I am statements, and Cheryl can speak to this, right? She's our affirmation queen here. When we use those I am statements and how that actually is taking on an agreement, right? Saying this is who I am. And in a way, I'm committing to being this. Are you sure that's what you want to be committing to? Cheryl, some thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's so interesting because we're always thinking about the next level, right? What's in the future. And when you make those I am statements, you're really talking about I am moving in that direction, right? It might not have happened yet, but I am there. And I am there so much so that I can see it. I can speak to it as if it's happening right now. And I am in that place that I want to be in. And so when you start to say the negative I ams, then it takes you to that place. So there's always a destination at the end of I am. Where are you going? I am going where? And when you think about it like that, nobody wants to go someplace that's going to be harmful, because that's just silly. No one wants to say I am going into debt. That's a silly statement to make. Right? I am going into financial freedom. Much different statement. So where are you going with the I am is really what's important. And when you start to connect that to the agreements that you make, then again, where are you going? I am committed to picking up the kids today after basketball practice. And then something comes up and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot, because I don't normally pick the kids up. So it hadn't resonated with me fully that I've taken on this responsibility. And so what do I do now? Well, you got to do something, right? You call up a person and you immediately, as soon as possible, state why you can't follow through with your agreement. This is what came up. I'm sorry that this has happened. How can we fix this? Because it takes it to what you're talking about now, Whitney, right? Is that whole caring for a person enough to let them know, although I committed myself, I'm unable to fulfill my promise. I apologize, but what else can we do?
Right.
And it saves you face, it saves your reputation, it saves your integrity, and it saves that inner guilt. It saves that inner guilt that you live with when you don't follow through and you're like, oh my gosh. And you don't want to pick up the phone because you don't want to hear about it or you don't want to even talk about it. But, to re-engineer that method of thinking and get ahead of it and say, this is what's going on. Because Jody, you said that we're human.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would imagine in the training that you do and the coaching that you do with your clients, right, is they have a brand promise. We all have a brand
Exactly.
promise. Even if you have not specifically made an agreement, Jody and I enter into an agreement. I'm going to do something for Jody. Jody does something for me in return, which is a contract, which is a type of agreement, right? And the things that we sign with software and whatnot, those are contracts and agreements, legally binding and all of that. But there's a brand promise with business. And in reality, we all have a brand promise. We all have a brand. Whether you've thought about it that way or not, you have a brand. People see you in a particular way. You hold yourself out in a particular way. And so we also have to be careful that the agreements are sometimes implicit. They're not always spoken, right? And if you convey to someone that they can depend on you, right, that you are there for them, and time after time that's the case, and then you're not, while that's not an explicit agreement that you would be there for them, it also can take a toll on your relationships and the way people see you. So I just want to say it's not always that you are saying something and have made a decision to do something for someone very specifically. It could be implicit as well, and just pay attention to that.
Hey, and what about something? What about something as simple as is consistently being late?
Yeah,
I mean, that's even breaking an agreement, right? When you just show up, you start to get a reputation, and people and that's not the way we want people to think of us, right? Mm-hmm.
That's a really good one, because I think people really don't put we're in a place in history or relationships where we don't put a lot of a value on that, right? I showed up, right? I showed up, and that should be enough. But if there is a time for something and you need to be there, what does it say in the book? I don't know who's the original sayer of this quote. On time, being early is on time, and being on time is late. Something very close to that, right?
If you're not early, you're late.
If you're not early, you're late, and if you're on time, you're late, right? So yes, yeah. So right, so, and that is part of a very good point for us to stop and think about. Showing up on time, that means planning, right? So a lot of this is not just about you. It's about the way you think and approach life, relationships, and the commitment. It's not just the thing. It really is a mindset and how you are approaching the way you live your life. And there's another saying, the way we do one thing is how we do one thing is how we do everything. And to keep that in mind. Gabby, I wanted to ask you, in terms of energy, right? So you're here and you very much are about energy. Share with us how keeping agreements or not keeping agreements can have impact on energy, not just physical things, but our personal energy.
Yeah, that's a great question. And to talk, I was just going to mention today about the 4 agreements, but you always beat us to everything, Whitney. That book is that book. Yes, you do. That book is incredible. I have read it twice, and he's also written The Fifth Agreement. I don't know if you got that, Whitney. The Fifth Agreement. I remember the first time I bought that book, I was in a train. I passed where, like, I went 4 stations beyond where I was supposed to get off. That's how good it is. So I've read it twice, and it's a keeper. I will keep on reading it until I go to my grave. So it's a good book. I highly recommend it. So good recommendation. Energy, because the energy is, we're all energy. Like when we meet somebody, it's, we introduce ourselves to someone. I personally, that's how I do. Like when I'm talking to someone, I'm reading their energy. I could tell if this person is genuine or not, has integrity or not. I have been fooled a few times, and even here on Facebook, like I have blocked a few people who have promised and promised and promised, and they used my energy, and then they gave me a slap in the face. So I have been fooled a few times, but 95% of the time, it's about, people do read your energy. So be careful. And then the thing that I can say is, why do people even promise something they know they can't keep? Why? Is anybody has a gun on your head for you to say something that you can't? Don't waste people's energy. Don't waste your energy, because you're losing respect. I personally, I lose respect if somebody says something and does the opposite completely. I'm done with them. But that's me. I don't know about you ladies. That's that. You can also lose family, you can lose friends, you lose respect for yourself. When it comes to business, whether it's coaching or any kind of business, you can lose clients. And people do talk. If you lie to someone, you promise someone something you never delivered, like I just mentioned this guy, because some people were going to bring him to speak, and immediately when I saw his face, and I went in and I said, no, you don't. This guy is not good. He has no integrity. So he lost business because I said that. People do talk. So you can lose clients. Not only that one person that you upset, that you promised something and you never delivered, but that person is going to take, I'm going to tell Jody, Jody's going to tell Whitney, Whitney's going to tell Cheryl, Cheryl is going to tell the other friends. That is how it goes. So be careful. Don't promise something you can't keep. And don't say one thing and do the opposite, get caught doing the opposite. I have seen that happen a lot. They say something and you find them doing exactly the opposite. So that is my thing. So it's all about energy. Like, be careful, because people can read your energy. I can. I am sure you do too.
Absolutely. Before we get into, there's some tips on making and keeping agreements. I just wanted to give Jody and or Cheryl, if you had any comments on the energy piece, particularly as it relates to the particular type of work that you do, if you wanted to comment on that. And then we're going to move on to talking about the tips that are helpful for making and keeping agreements.
Yeah.
I have an example. It doesn't relate to my energy piece, but just a quick example. Have you ever lent money to someone and they said, "Oh, a lot of money," and they say, "I promise you, I'm going to pay you back next paycheck." 6 months later, 6 months later, they haven't paid you back, and guess what? Now you tip. And then you lend them money again, but you lend it knowing that I really shouldn't be doing this. I really shouldn't be doing this, but you lend money again. And then what normally would be you regularly keep in touch. Well, now you're not hearing from this person. And of course, you know why? Because like I said earlier, this person, it's probably, they feel bad about it. It's probably wearing on their own self-esteem. It's probably wearing on their own self-confidence, right? But anyway, that was kind of a recent.
No, that's a really good, like, real world
experience.
Yeah.
Add to that as well. I can add to that.
Everyone that we're talking to in our audience is not a business person. So having examples that relate to a very real world experience, I think is extremely helpful.
You lose trust in, all that. I mean, it's gone, but obviously that other person feels bad as well. But
and that's an energy. But see, you said you
Yeah.
didn't have an energy example.
Okay, good. I did have one.
That
Thank you
actually
for
is
that.
an energy example, right?
I'll take
I
it.
know.
And that exchange of energy, or that unwillingness to exchange that energy, is a part of that. And
Oh,
so
sure.
Yeah.
as Gabby said, everything is energy. All our
Yeah.
thoughts, our interactions, we
For
are,
sure.
and the exchange matters. So
Yeah.
Gabby, you were going to say something?
Yeah, because I have a similar story to what Jody just mentioned. When I was in the Middle East, I was single, I was making good money. So my cousin, my friends, uh, can I have this? My brother is in the hospital. Okay, $700 here, 2,000 US dollars here. Anyway, I was single. I took care of my mom, but the rest was all mine. And I never saw any. Well, my cousin, who one of them, he borrowed about 2,500 US from me. He gave me 200. I never saw him again. One of them, one friend, she moved to California from Abu Dhabi, from the Middle East, without even saying goodbye to me after all I did for her, because she was so ashamed. She didn't want to give me the money. One of my cousins didn't even come to say goodbye to me on my farewell because of all the money that he owes me. And then you lose, like, what kind of, like, I was in such a negative, and I was so sad. I said, really, can money do this to families, to friends, to good friends? And I was like in a sad energy, and then I said, you know what, at the end of the day, it's only money, but I need to learn that lesson from now on. It's better to say to someone, okay, I have only 200, I'll give you this 200, but you don't expect it. You just give 200. If they ask you for 1,000, just give 200 as a gift, and you don't expect any money back. So this is something actually I learned from one of the high-end financial advisors, which is a great advice. Yeah. So it did happen to me a lot, Jody. So yeah.
I always heard that when it comes to something like that, don't lend it with the expectation of it coming back.
Exactly.
If it comes back, then you're like, okay, great. But if it doesn't, then you did it because you could, even though it would be nice if it did. But if it doesn't, then move on, move on with moving on. Keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And don't let that
No,
person,
but
because
Cheryl, but no,
you can
but
hound
Depends on the
someone.
amount of
Cheryl,
money too. Depends on the amount of money. So that's why, like Gabby's, I'll
yeah,
give you 200, right? And then, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
But
What
you
it
know
does
what,
is it
move
Cheryl,
on.
though?
absorbs your energy too, right? We're talking about
Yeah,
energy.
Cheryl, what
It
I have, what,
absorbs
but
your
yeah,
energy,
but
not only the person that you
yeah, it
lent it
does.
to, but yours, right? So now what's just happened is I've given my power over to this thing, right? I've
Yeah,
just said, you
true.
know what? Take me. I'm just, I'm not enough to say, you know what, that's not going to bother me. I still have things that I'm going to do, that I'm going to accomplish. I'm moving on. And so, we all know about E plus R equals O. It's how we respond to this
Yeah,
situation that happened in order for us to get the outcome that we want. Well, after
yeah,
every interaction, I want an outcome that says we're still okay, even though we might agree to disagree. We're still okay. You might stay in your lane, I stay in my lane, right? But those are choices that we get to make. And when you keep your agreement, that's a choice that you get to make. And unless there is something that has come up, and I can just think of myself, the last time I was able to get on a mastermind, it's been about 3 weeks, and we meet every single week. The only time we're off is on holidays. And I was just in such a state of so much going on and personal and business that I had to control what I could control.
yeah,
And what I could control was to pick up the phone, or in our case, send a text and say, hey, I'm not able to make this session. Those are the things that I can control, so that
yeah,
I can be full all in another aspect that needed my full attention. And
yeah,
that's, again, going with Wendy on that caring aspect. I care enough about the group, about you as individuals, that I don't want to just not show up as if I don't value your time or respect you. Because that's what you're saying. When you don't show up, you don't send a message, and days go by and it's like they really still never reached out, right? You're sending a message. I don't value our relationship enough that this is important to me. And so that says something about the agreement of friendship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to a couple of things. I love that you bring that piece in. It speaks to the implicit piece, right? The implicit part of our mastermind group is that we commit to showing up every week. And if we don't, that we're communicating that. And I think that piece is okay. And this was mentioned earlier, if you have to break your agreement for whatever reason, that at the earliest moment, you acknowledge that, communicate it, and then offer up what you can. And it goes to your point, which is one of the 4 agreements of the 5, now that there are 5. One of the 4 agreements is that you do the best that you can, and you don't feel bad or guilty about not being able to do more than that. Your bandwidth, we all have limited bandwidth. We all have limited time, right? Energy. And we have to decide how we're going to expend that, how we're going to invest it. And we can't invest in everything. Going back to the point, sometimes you have to say no. So let's talk about what it takes to make and keep agreements. So the first tip is to only make agreements that you intend to keep. So going to our point here in this conversation is to take the time, right? Before you say yes, before you commit, that you actually take some time. You don't have to take 2 weeks to think about it, but you should take some time to think about, is this something that you really want to do, need to do, are able to do? Right? What else should be considered? Have the time, the energy, and all of that. The value, is it in alignment with your values, with your priorities? Right? Check in. Are you? Does it make you feel sick in the stomach that someone is asking you to do something and you're considering? Right? All of that. Your body has feedback for you on things that are in front of you. So if you possibly cannot keep the agreement, then you don't have to say yes. You can even say, I would love to, I need some time to think about this, or I can't make a commitment right now. Let me look and see what I can do. Right? What do you guys think on this first tip? Only make agreements you intend to keep.
Yeah, for me, like I would say, if you if you gave your word and you're overworked, I think it is time to ask for help so that you could keep your agreements. Always ask for help. So that's my take on that.
I think in order to make agreements that you intend to keep, it has to be something that means something to you, right? You've got to have either a passion around it, or there's some sort of a tie. There's some sort of a heartstring connection or a business obligatory connection. There has to be something that says, this here is mandatory for me to keep once I say yes.
Yes.
There has to be something that says that, because if not, then it goes down to, I don't feel like it, right? It goes into that, I don't feel like it, so I'm just going to not show up, or I'm going to cancel. So in order to keep it, is it something that you really want to do? And I think that's important, because sometimes we do things and we don't really want to. We just feel like, I don't want to say no. Right? We know there are people that are just people pleasers, and you'll say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And so being able to keep things that you're passionate about as that added layer on, this is going to get done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else have a thought on that before we move to number 2? The next one, and I'll be honest, this is not something that I had ever thought about before reading the book, at least in this way, is to write down all the agreements you make, right? Write them down, right? Have a list. Use a calendar, your daily planning book, a notebook, smartphone, tablet, computer. Record all of your agreements. And you can start with recording all the agreements that you have right now ongoing and see where you are with them, right? It says one of the big reasons we don't keep our agreements is that with all the stuff that's going on, we just forget, right?
Yeah.
And it's not intentional. It's not that you didn't intend, that have the best of intentions at the time, but life happens. Things happen, and next thing you know, you look up and you didn't keep an agreement, and days later you go, oh shoot, I forgot to do such and such, and I'm gonna own that one. I do that, right? I'm someone who will say I'm going to do something, and I have every intent to do it. I start on my cell phone with sending an email or a text message to say something else comes. I got bright shiny object syndrome, and I get distracted, and then somewhere I'm thinking I completed that, right? I sent that email, I sent that text, and I didn't. And a couple of days later, either I'm reminded that I didn't, or I go, oh shoot, I forgot to send whatever, right? So it happens. But if you keep track of what you're committing to, so that you can always look and see what's on my agenda, when are the due dates for it, it can make your ability to actually honor your agreements stronger. Any thoughts on this one? Anyone do this currently?
I live by my calendar. And not only that, I put everything in my calendar. Otherwise, with whatever is going on in this lifetime, I could miss something. What I do is I put a reminder 2 days ahead of time. I know 2 days could be short, but 2 days ahead of time, instead of, calendar would tell you 15-minute reminder. No, I go 2 days. So I live by that for sure. And then when an email comes in and it's a must, you have to respond to it, and you have to be careful what you respond. It needs more detail. There is always those 3 dots. You click those 3 dots and you put in the reminder. Remind me tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So I live by those. And I was reading it last night too. Yeah.
There are tools available to help us. Jody or Cheryl, do either of you do that? Not just stuff on your calendar, but I made this agreement. I can't say that I put in my phone that I told my mom I would call her back tomorrow, right?
I know,
I'll be on the phone with her, and I was like, I'll call you back tomorrow. Or my sister, right? I say my sister, I talk with her almost every day. And I'll say, I'll call you back later, right? Yeah. That's an agreement. That is an agreement. It may not be a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it is an agreement. And I'll get caught up in something, and it'll be 2 days later. And I was like, ooh, next time I talked to her, it's like, oh, I was supposed to call you back a couple of days ago. Ooh, forgot. Oh, she's not losing sleep over it. I didn't lose sleep over it, but it's the principle of the thing. And if we're going back to being impeccable with our words, saying what we mean, meaning what we say, honoring what we do, every little bit matters. So I could just get off the phone and say, I need to go. Talk to you next time I talk to you, right? And if I call her back later, I do. If I don't, then I'll talk to her when I talk to her. Cheryl.
I like that what you just said, right? Instead of saying, I'll call you tomorrow or I'll call you right back, to say, I'll talk to you later, right? Two totally different implications of what's going to happen as we move forward.
Right.
And I think, I don't write down, I mean, I have a calendar where I keep, appointments and that sort of thing, but I don't write down every agreement that I might make. I do know that I'm very conscious of agreements that I do make,
Yeah.
and I've learned because I used to be one of those people that would say, yes, yes, I can do that. I can do that. And then I would, my attempt to get it done, get frustrated at myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For saying, why did you say yes? Now here
I
you
know.
are, it's midnight, right? They're asleep and you're here fulfilling your agreement. Why did you say yes? And so, as I stated, I've gotten much better at allowing myself to only be obligated to certain things, and they need to drive my passion because that's where they're going to get the best commitment. And that's where they're going to get the best version of me is if I am committed to something that I'm passionate about. And, I think about that with the organizations that I belong to, right? Rather, I'm working, as a alumni for the college. And what is it that what are our goals? What is it that we're supposed to be doing? Am I fulfilling my part of that? And that's important. That's important because I need to be able to be known for my word. She said she's going to be here. She's going to be here. She said she's going to be doing X, Y, and Z, delivering it to us on the 3rd of February. Then chances are she's going to give it to us on the 1st. Right.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, Gabby, that 2-day buffer. I like that because that's what I do. I do a buffer just in case stuff happens, because we know it happens, that you're still on time. Just point case today, I had the conference that I'm speaking at on the 1st, they wanted the slide deck today. Well, I had finished the slide deck on Thursday, but I wanted to go over it to make sure, because once you send it, you don't get to go back and go, can you add in slide 17 and make it go swizzle? You don't get to do that. So I needed to be able to shut down everything to focus on that so that I could fulfill not only my promise, but exceed their expectations on what was sent to them.
So, ladies, audience, I can't believe we're already 57 minutes into this. Time flies when you're having fun and you're learning and you're sharing. So there are 2 other tips. We have already talked about them, and so we won't belabor them. And I want to give each of the ladies here an opportunity to leave you with a final thought. But the other 2 points are to communicate any broken agreement at the first appropriate time. So as soon as you know that you're going to break the agreement, or as soon as you have an opportunity, if you can't do it before for whatever reason, to communicate that, right? You want to minimize the damage of not having completed your commitment. And the other is just learn to say no more often.
Oh, you got it. I was just going to say that. Learn
with
it's okay to say no. Yeah, exactly.
Be okay with that. So those are your 4 tips, right? To only make agreements you intend to keep. To keep track of them. Write them down. Use the tools available to do that. Communicate any broken agreements as soon as you're able, and then learn to say no more often. So, Jody, final parting thoughts.
Okay, so my parting thought is just another tip, and that is to give yourself a consequence. If I don't do it, then I am going to give Whitney $100.
I like it. I'm rooting for you.
If I don't do it, I'm going to blank. So think about that one, right? Because that can be a really big one. That's a great one. And so anyway, with that, I'll just say thank you for another great chat, ladies. And thanks for everybody who is joining the conversation. Feel free to leave some comments and let us know your thoughts. So I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Awesome. Gabby.
Yes, that was amazing. And yes, keep your agreements. Don't promise something you know you're not able to do. If you really promise someone you want to do something and you really want to do it, but you're stuck, ask for help, hire help. I think some of my teams here, they do that. I don't, because my case is different right now, but it's going to happen very soon. But hire help or ask for help, but don't break your promise. That is what I would say. And it's also okay to say no. I think Whitney said it already, but it's okay to say, I'm sorry, but I can't do it at this time. So just be yourself, be honest, keep your word. Thank you so much for watching. Thank
Love
you,
it.
ladies.
Cheryl.
Yeah, I want to say 3 letters, GWC. First of all, do you get it? Do you understand what the agreement is? So that way you know whether or not you want to commit to it. Do you want it? That's the W. Do you want to do it? If you don't want to do it, then go with Gabby and say no. And the C is capacity. Do you have the capacity to fulfill the agreement?
Yeah.
So, do you get it? Do you want it? And do you have the capacity to complete the agreement? That's what I want to leave you with. I always love these conversations, so definitely join us. Go to Rescue for Success because you can share this conversation, because there's been some amazing insights, about agreements and how they influence our lives in both professional and personal worlds. So thank you all. It's always a pleasure to be here with the Mastermind ladies. Whitney, over to
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, always is. I'm going to let the three of you, your final words, let those stand. Again, want to thank you, whether you're watching this live. For those of you who commented during during the program, I know Cheryl was interacting with you. Thank you for taking the time to comment. And if you're watching this on replay, let us know that you watched it. We are here on the fourth Monday of the month. We'll be here next month on the fourth Monday, which is the 24th of October. We look forward to seeing you then, and continue to weigh in the comments. Tell us how you are changing how you're approaching your agreements, right? And that you're going to actually read those agreements on software and apps before you sign them, and that you're not going to take on any more agreements that you're not absolutely going to honor. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. So take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.